Hi everyone, my name is Maria Christine de Panizales.
And my name is John Fitzcalma, and our topic is oxidative
and
phosphorylation.
which consists of electrons transport chain, chemiosmosis, and ATP yield. What is oxidative phosphorylation? So oxidative phosphorylation is composed of electron transport chain and the chemiosmosis. Electron transport chain. This is the last component of aerobic respiration, which may meron na tayong dalawang unang bago itong electron transport chain, which is the glycolysis and the citric acid cycle. At ito lang yung only part na in glucose metabolism that uses atmospheric oxygen. So this electron transport chain is a series of redox reaction, which is resemble a relay race or bucket brigade. So in the electrons, nagapasa-pasa siya rapidly from one component to the next. So at the end point of this chain, the electrons reduce molecules, oxygen, and produced water. We have 4 complexes composed of proteins labeled 1, 2, 4. So, mamaya makikita natin ang diagram kung ano ang diagram ng electron transport chain and ano itong mga 4 complexes. So, the aggregation of these 4 complexes is together with associated mobile, which is malalaman din natin mamaya, and accessory electron carriers, and ito ay kabuuan na tinatawag na electron transport chain. Electron transport chain is present in multiple copies, which is in a mitochondrial matrix of eukaryotes and plasma membrane in prokaryotes. Before tayo mag-proceed sa diagram, isasabi ko muna sa inyo kung ano ang FODH2 and NODH. So, what is FODH2? Ano ang kanyang meaning? So, ito ang kanyang meaning, which is flavin adenine dinucleotide, and the NODH is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. So NODH is very good at donating electrons in redox reaction. That is, its electrons are at high energy level. So it can transfer its electrons directly to complex 1, turning back into NOD plus. So FODH naman is not good as at donating electron as NODH. So that is, its electrons are at lower energy level. So hindi siya matatransfer sa complex 1 at malalaman din natin yan sa diagram. So this is the diagram of electron transport chain. So as nakikita nyo, si NODH, which is ito, and si FODH, ito. So, more NODH is produced and used than FODH2 in the process of creating energy. There are actually 6 NODH produced and only 2 FODH molecules. So, all of the electrons that transport chain come from NODH and FODH. So this NODH and FODH is produced during earlier stages of cellular respiration, which is the glycolysis, pyruvate oxidation, and the citric acid cycle. So nakikita nyo na intermembrane space sa taas and mitochondrial matrix. Dito sa mitochondrial matrix, we have lower concentration, and intermembrane space naman ay we have the high concentration. So ito si complex 1, this is the complex 2, si ubiquinone, si complex 3, si cytochrome C, and si complex 4. So yan sila. So next is i-introduce ko na sa inyo si complex 1. So complex 1, which tinatawag din siyang NADH dehydrogenase. So itong si complex 1, ito ay composed ng flavin mononucleotide, which is FMN, and iron sulfur containing protein. So, sinabi ko nga kanina na contain ng protein itong mga complexes na ito. So, what is FMN? So, FMN, which is derived from vitamin B2, also called riboflavin, is one of several protostic groups or cofactors in the electron transport chain. So, yung makikita nyo, ito si complex 1. Ayan siya. May makikita nyo na may merong FMN, FES, may merong iron sulfur and flavin mononucleotide. Composed kasi siya dyan. And itong si complex 1, a protostic group is, bago natin siya i-introduce, so, a protostic group is non-protein molecule required for the activity of a protein. So, the enzyme in complex 1 is NADH dehydrogenase, and ito ay very large protein. So, si complex 1 is nag-accept siya electron from NADH. So, yung NADH and FADH na nakolekta natin is ito si complex 1 is gina-accept niya yung kanyang electron, so magiging NOD plus as makikita nyo dito, and passing them to ubiquinone via FMN and FES center. So ito si ubiquinone. So once na ma-accept ni complex 1 ang electrons ni node H, ito ay magpo-proton pump. So yan, pag na-accept niya yung electron, so magpa-pump si complex 1. So, si complex 1, makapump siya ng 4 hydrogen ions. So, makikita nyo, yan siya, magpapump siya ng 4 hydrogen ions. So, across the membrane from the matrix into the intermembrane space. So, complex 1 can pump 4 hydrogen ions across the membrane from the matrix into the intermembrane space. So, si complex 1 can pump 4 hydrogen ions across the membrane from the matrix into the intermembrane space. So, next is the complex 2, which is na tinatawag na NADH dehydrogenase complex. So, si complex 2 siya ay nag-receive ng FADH, which does not pass through the complex 1. So, the number of ATP molecules ultimately obtained is directly proportional to the number of protons pumped across the inner mitochondrial membrane. So, si complex 2 is gin-oxidize niya si FADH2 to FAD. So, the 2 electrons, ay makikita nyo dito. Ayan, so, complex 2 oxidize FADH2 to FAD. So, the 2 electrons released are transferred to ubiquinone. So, ito siya, makikita nyo na si complex 2 ay hindi siya lumagpas. So, hindi siya makapump across sa matrix to enter membrane space. So, dahil may meron siyang ubiquinone sa taas, so, yung mapump ni complex 2 na electron ay mapapasa sa ubiquinone, which is ito, yung Q. Ito siya. So, anyong protons naman ay ma-release sila. So, papunta ulit sa matrix. So, electrons that pass to ubiquinone by the complex 2 reaction bypass complex 1 of the electron transfer system. So, ito si ubiquinone. So, di ba, kanina is yung electron ni complex 1 ay nandyan na din sa ubiquinone, And ngayon, si complex 2 is yung kanyang electron is nandito na rin sa ubiquinone. So, dito sila, nagsama-sama na dito ang electrons, and ang proton naman is, yung sa complex 1 ay pumunta na doon sa intermembrane space, at yung sa complex 2 naman ay bumalik sa matrix. So, next, si complex 3, which is tinatawag na cytochrome oxidative. So, the third complex is composed of cytochrome B, another FES protein, and recenter, and cytochrome C protein. So, si complex 3, nag-pump siya ng protons to the membrane and passes its electron to cytochrome C. So, saan ito makikita si cytochrome C? Ito siya between sa complex 3 and complex 4. So, napapasa niya dito sa cytochrome C for transport to the fort of protein and enzymes. Cytochrome C is the acceptor of electrons from ubiquinone. So, si complex 3 nare-receive electrons from ubiquinone, passing them to cytochrome C, which carries electrons to complex 4. So, yung mga electron na pumasa na dito sa ubiquinone na galing kay complex 2 at saka complex 1 ay pinasa na din kay complex 3, at na-energize na naman si complex 3 at nag-pump na naman siya ng mga protons sa intermembrane space. So, lahat ng mga nandito na is pupunta naman dito sa cytochrome C para mapunta dito sa complex 4. So, next is, ang isasabi natin ay si complex 4 na naman. So, the last complex is the complex 4, which is cytochrome oxidase complex. So, the fourth complex is composed of cytochrome proteins Ca and A. So, the cytochrome hold an oxygen molecule very tightly between the iron and copper ions until the oxygen is completely reduced. So, pag na-reduce ang oxygen, magpipick up siya ng 2 hydrogen from the surrounding. So, pag pick up niya is makaproduce ng water, H2O. So, the removal of hydrogen ions from the system also contributes to the iron gradient used in the process of chemiosmosis. So, yun. And yung mga naiwan sa complex 4 is may idudulot siya sa process ng chemiosmosis or may pakinabang. And
Pag yun na yung case natin after ng electron transport chain, nagkaroon tayo ng napakaraming nitrogen ions. So, susunod na yung process of chemiosmosis. So, when we say chemiosmosis, it is the process in which energy from a proton gradient is used to make ATP. Nakabuo na tayo ng proton gradient kanina. So, yung gradient, yun yung chem na part. And then, osmosis, moving from one or moving through a membrane and form a certain energy which is in a form of ATP. So, for instance, chemiosmosis is also involved in the light reactions of photosynthesis. Ito yan siya. The process in which energy from a proton gradient is used to make ATP. More broadly, chemiosmosis can refer to any process in which energy stored in a proton gradient is used to do work. Although chemiosmosis accounts for over 90% of ATP made during glucose breakdown in cellular respiration, it's not unique to cellular respiration. Ito, for instance, chemiosmosis, ayan yung sinabi ko kanina, na yung chemiosmosis is involved din dito yung light reactions ng photosynthesis. Okay? Sa complexes 1, 3, and 4 of electron transport chain are proton pumps. As electrons move energetically downhill, the complexes capture the released energy and use it to pump its hydrogen plus ions from the matrix to the intermembrane space. This pumping forms an electrochemical gradient across the inner mitochondrial membrane space, wherein yung tawag natin sa gradient nito is a proton motive force. Yan. Ito. So, nangyayari dito sa intermembrane space ay dumarami ang hydrogen plus ion sa inner membrane natin. Ay mayroon tayong tinatawag na ATP synthase. Just like in photosynthesis, and dito na rin pumapasok or papasok yung hydrogen ions natin. Na kung saan pagkuha niya is just like the turbine in a hydroelectric power plant na instead of being turned by water, hydrogen ions yung pumapasok sa kanya. As ATP synthase turns in catalyzers, and the addition of phosphate to ADP capturing energy from the proton gradient as ATP. So, as you can see, nandito na po yung diagram natin or yung picture po natin ng process of chemiosmosis. Tapos na yung citric acid cycle natin, and meron tayong NADH na na-produce and FADH. Sa NADH will give off its electron, and once na nag-give off na yung electron na yon, magkakaroon tayo ng pumping of hydrogen ions from the matrix papunta sa inner membrane space. Si NADH, si NADH will become NAD plus and hydrogen ion, and then simultaneously a FADH2 will deliver its electron to complex 2. Ito. Nakikita nyo ba yung arrow natin? So, ito yung complex 1. Yung electron niya mapupunta sa sa complex 2 natin. But itong si complex 2 hindi nagpa-pump ng hydrogen ions ha. Tandaan po natin, always take note yan. Itong si complex 2 hindi po siya nagpa-pump ng hydrogen ions. Ang nangyayari lang sa kanya is pinapasa niya na lang yung electrons niya sa kay Q, which is electron carrier Q. Ito yun siya si basta ito. Q yun siya. Yan, ito. Si electron carrier Q natin, gayon din si electron complex 1. Ipapasa nilang dalawa yung na-produce nila na electrons. And pero dito mabalikan po natin yung may proton gradient po dito, or yung hydrogen ions is pinapalabas po yung protons. Pinapalabas po and hindi po ipinapasa sa kabilang complex. Yung electron lang po yung ipinapasa sa complex 2, gayon na din po sa electron carrier Q po natin. So, yung complex 2 po natin ay ipapasa yung electrons niya kay electron carrier Q. Then, from electron carrier Q, mapupunta din yung electrons kay complex 3. Kay complex 3 po. And then, kay 3, so si 3, magpapump na naman ng hydrogen ions from the matrix papuntang intermembrane space. And then, ipapasa na naman ulit kay cytochrome C. So, ito, si cytochrome C. Ito, yung purple. Yan, si cytochrome C. And then, si C will pass it to complex 4. Yung electrons po, ipapasa nyo po kay complex 4 po. And then yung electrons na nandito kay 4 will give off its electron to our oxygen, and that electrons will again, pagkakuha ni oxygen, will attract to hydrogen ions forming water molecules. So, yung electrons po ni complex 4, ipapalabas nyo po, forming H2O water and 2 hydrogen plus 1/2 of oxygen oxide, O2, 1/2 O2, forming water molecules. So, yung na-produce po dito is water molecules po. So, sa lahat po ng complexes po, from complex 1 to complex 4, bali sa kabuuan is magpapasa-pasa lang po sila ng electrons from one another, and then magpuproduce po sila ng tinatawag na water molecules. At kung paulit-ulit na nangyayari yon, magkakaroon tayo ng electrochemical gradient dito sa ating intermembrane space, meaning there is a high concentration of hydrogen ions dito sa inner membrane po natin, intermembrane rather. And what will happen is magkakaroon tayo ng proton motive force, and that pump that in which proton motive force will drive this ATP ATP synthase to add a phosphate group kay ADP to form ATP. So generally that is what is happening in electron transport chain. So let's proceed na po sa next topic natin, which is ATP yield. So the electron transport chain is a collection of proteins bound to inner mitochondrial membrane as organic molecules, which electrons pass through in a series of redox reactions and releases energy. The energy released forms a proton gradient, which is used in chemismosis to make a large amount of ATP synthase. For every pair of electrons transported to electron transport chain by a molecule of NADH, between 2 and 3 ATP are generated. For each pair of electrons transferred by FADH2, between 1 and 2 ATP are generated. So, in addition lang po, the amount of energy as ATP is gained from glucose catabolism, varies across species, and depends on other related cellular processes. And it happens po sa eukaryotic cell. The process of cellular respiration can metabolize one molecule of glucose into 30 to 32 ATP, in which the process of glycolysis only produces 2 ATP, while the rest are produced during the electron transport chain. Clearly, the electron transport chain is vastly more efficient, but it can only be carried out in the presence of oxygen. Ito po. And wait, nabalik po natin. So, sa ATP yield, in addition also is the NADH generated from glycolysis cannot easily enter mitochondria. So, therefore, sa process po nito, sa ATP yield po natin, is present din po yung mga molecules natin, yung ibang molecules, yung ATP molecules na generate po ng glucose. So, present po dito yung mga glucose catabolism, which connects with the pathway that build or break down other biochemical compounds in cells. And the result is somewhat messier than the ideal situations described thus far. Yung example po nito is yung mga sugars po natin, other than glucose, are fed into the glycolytic pathway for energy extraction. Yung mga 5 carbons din po natin, yung 5 carbon sugars po natin, yun din po yung mga ibang examples po dito. And present din po dito yung lipids, Halimbawa na lang po dito yung mga yung cholesterol and triglycerides po, which also made from intermediates in this pathways po. In both amino acids and triglycerides are broken down for energy through these pathways. So overall, sa process po ng ATP, in living systems, this pathways of glucose catabolism extract about 34 degrees. 34 degrees po. 34 degrees of the energy contained in glucose. Ito po. So, from ATP, from glycolysis, from glucose, glycolysis, to pyruvic acid, nag-produce po ng ATP and 2NADH. 2 ATP and 2NADH. Then, from 2NADH, dadiretso na siya kay electron transport chain or the ATP synthase action, which produces ATP. So, from there, nag-produce po siya ng 2-acetyl-CoA, and pumunta po, dumiretso po kay Krebs cycle, in which Krebs cycle produces also 2 ATP. And from dito, nag-produce ng 2 NADH, so nag-proceed na. From Krebs cycle, nakaproduce ng 6 NADH plus 2 FADH2. And then, dumiretso na kay electron transport chain. So, overall, lahat sila always present yung ATP, in which nakaproduce sila ng about 34 ATP. So, maximum ATP per glucose molecule about 38. 38 ATPs. So, ayun. Wait. So, sa process nito, this diagram shows the summary of cellular respiration. Glucose is broken down in the presence of oxygen into simpler materials, carbon dioxide, and water. The energy released is used to produce ATP from ADP and phosphate. So, sa next po natin na diagram, aside from glucose, lipid, and protein, are also broken down into smaller substances. Their catabolic pathway are linked into Krebs cycle to produce energy. So from lipid, pumunta siya kay from lipid nakaproduce ng fatty acid plus glycerol, and then the oxidation of fatty acid, then acetyl-CoA or 2C, and then Krebs cycle. From protein naman, pumunta kay amino acids or deamination na nakaproduce ng pyruvate, nakaproduce ng pyruvate, and then from amino acids na pumunta na agad kay Krebs cycle. From pyruvate pumunta kay Krebs cycle. So all in all, lahat ng mga processes nito ay pupunta kay Krebs cycle. So, that's all, everyone. So, thank you. Pero mapahaba lang, guys. So, sa lahat ng mga processes na yon, and all in all, it is called oxidative phosphorylation. Oxidative because of the continuous losing of electrons, and then dito naman phosphorylation with the formation of our ATP. So si NAD plus at FAD or FAD, pupunta naman sila or babalik para magamit sila para babalik naman sa citric acid cycle and then sa glycolysis para magamit sila, and that's it for our electron transport chain. Hope you'd understand and learned sa kahit maliit lang. Bye!